What is up, guys? In today's video, we're talking about multiple days of severe weather, flash flooding, a dangerous prolonged heat wave, and a chance of tropical development that could be upcoming. Let's get right into this video. Alright, the first thing we're going to be talking about in today's video is a slight risk 2 out of 5 of severe storms across Mobridge, Bismarck, Fargo, and Grand Forks in the yellow areas, and these storms will probably develop over the late evening to even all the way across the overnight hours, especially by the time they make it to around Fargo and Grand Forks on the border between North Dakota and Minnesota. Now, the main threat with this will just be wind damage, as multiple storms will congeal into a line as they head towards the northeast. There could be some isolated tornadoes here across Grand Forks and Fargo, where they will most likely be embedded tornadoes, but the tornado risk is fairly low across those areas, so just be prepared as it's possible, but is not looking likely in those areas. The main threat today will just be wind damage across these yellow regions, so definitely be well aware, as these storms might occur when you're sleeping here, 10, 11, midnight, maybe even 1 in the morning in some areas here, as these storms start to develop around 8 p.m. or so and head towards the northeast. Now for the marginal risk of severe storms, which would be a 1 out of 5 of severe weather for today, ranges all the way from St. Louis, Jefferson City, all the way up to Peoria, Bloomington, Chicago, Detroit, Columbus, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Washington, D.C., and Dover areas, and portions of Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Ohio, northern West Virginia, northern Indiana, southern Michigan areas, and portions of central Illinois and central portions of Missouri. Now, for the timing of these storms, especially more for the storms down over here in portions of Missouri near the St. Louis area, Bloomington, Chicago, Fort Wayne areas, those storms will probably develop on the late evening hours, more like the late afternoon to early evening hours. I'd say maybe 6, 7, 8 p.m. possibly, where some storms could form. They could also pose a risk for some isolated flash flooding in these areas, but mostly just the main threat being isolated damaging wind gusts in some spots, where some downburst winds are possible, but nothing too significant in these areas, just something to be mindful about, as some storms could develop and maybe even occur all the way into the overnight hours in these regions, and some more storms that will develop around that same exact time across portions of Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Washington, and Maryland, and Dover areas in Delaware. Now, if we look at the timing for this potential thunderstorm development across portions of North Dakota, South Dakota, and portions of Minnesota, in this slight risk of severe storms, with the main threat being damaging winds, we will see some storms start to develop here across the 8 p.m. hours and near Montana regions, and even 9 to 10 p.m. where a cluster of storms will start to develop in portions of northern South Dakota, and will eventually congeal into a line maybe across midnight here, and will start to impact the Bismarck regions right around midnight to 1 in the morning here, posing risk for some damaging wind. And then by the time this line starts to kind of weaken around 3 to 4 a.m., some isolated embedded tornadoes could be possible, especially near Grand Forks and Fargo regions, so definitely be weather aware for that. Nothing too significant, but definitely a probable threat. But I just wanted to mention this because these storms are going to be occurring really, really late tonight. So definitely be having a plan and be prepared, and make sure you have your alerts on, as a definite damaging wind threat could be possible with an MCS line of storms that could form across those areas there. Now, for the storm development and the marginal risk of severe storms today, and the flash flooding threat that we do have today, we will see some thunderstorms already developing really right now, really close to Chicago regions, and then more thunderstorm development will definitely be prominent near Springfield around the 6 to 7 p.m. time frame in portions of Illinois, and then a big area of storms will probably start to develop south of Columbia, Missouri, around the 7 to 8 p.m. time frame, and pose a risk for some heavy rainfall that could even cause some isolated flash flooding down there in portions of central Missouri, really close to the St. Louis region, but definitely some really heavy rainfall there near Hannibal and Quincy and Springfield and Columbia regions that could cause some training of rainfall that could lead to flash flooding, especially just right near the Columbia, Missouri regions near Springfield, Illinois, where I do think the highest flash flooding threat could occur. And some of these could also pose an isolated risk of damaging winds today, so definitely be well aware for that, but nothing too significant, just some isolated downburst winds. And then some severe weather potential here near northern Illinois or northern Indiana, with some damaging winds possible and flash flooding in those areas. Now, for the flash flooding risks that we will have today, we do have a slight risk of flash flooding in north of Columbia, Missouri, across Kirksville, Quincy, Bloomington, Chicago, Springfield, Davenport, Fort Wayne, and portions of Missouri, northern Missouri, central to northern Illinois, northern Indiana, and extreme west central Ohio areas across this region here for today. Now, this will mostly be thunderstorms that could train over the same areas over and over again that will develop late this afternoon into the evening hours, maybe even overnight across portions of these regions, with some storms already starting to develop, especially in Illinois regions. Now, the northern part of this flash flooding risk is more for the rain that already occurred in these regions. There's still lingering flash flooding potential if any storms develop. That's why there's still that risk up there. But I do not think there should still be a slight risk of flash flooding up there. I think based on the model trends, most of the rainfall will be probably across these regions right here. Right around Columbia, Missouri, Springfield, Illinois, Bloomington, Urbana, Dayton, Columbus regions, just north of St. Louis, where mostly the rainfall could occur with some training of thunderstorms tonight. Definitely be prepared in these areas as some flash flooding could be possible, especially in that area I just circled for tonight. Now, we also have a risk of flash flooding with some storms that are going to develop in the afternoon to evening hours here, really close to Pittsburgh, over in Harrisburg and Johnstown areas in central Pennsylvania, with a slight risk of 2 out of 4 of flash flooding. So definitely be prepared for that, with some isolated flash flooding potential possible, and another slight risk of flash flooding in Utica, Syracuse, near Albany, and portions of upstate New York regions here. Definitely be prepared for this, as some flash flooding will occur, and this will probably be a really late threat, maybe past 10 p.m. in some spots where these storms will develop here. 10, 11, maybe even midnight, maybe even through the overnight hours past that across a lot of these regions. So some flash flooding could be possible, and it's going to be pretty dark out there, so definitely be prepared, as flash flooding could be possible in these regions in the overnight hours tonight, especially in upstate New York areas there. All right, for the day 2 flash flooding risk, we have a slight risk, 2 out of 4 of 15 to 40% chance of flash flooding across portions of northern Minnesota regions here, really close to Duluth, International Falls, Grand Rapids, really on the border of Minnesota and Canada across these regions. What I'm thinking is we could get most of our flash flooding rains really confined into Duluth and Ashland and Grand Rapids, Virginia, and Silver Bay areas. So definitely be prepared for this, as some flash flooding potential could be possible, especially in the afternoon to evening hours. And some of these could potentially even be severe across these areas, as some storms could form and pose risks for some isolated wind damage and even hail across these areas. So these are going to be some really heavy rainmakers that could, and if we get any training of thunderstorms, it could definitely cause some flash flooding. So definitely be possible, especially there near Duluth, Grand Rapids on I-35 here in portions of central to northern Minnesota, with this flash flooding potential possible tomorrow. All right, the last thing we're going to be talking about is this heat wave. I know you guys are just tired of the heat wave. So am I. It's just never ending. Here, look at this heat. We're going to be seeing bonkers extreme heat. Just look at there, South Carolina and North Carolina, portions of Virginia and Georgia. Near the coast areas, it's going to be nearly 110 degrees every day, all the way through nearly Wednesday, maybe even Thursday in some spots in South Carolina and North Carolina, with the most extreme heat days being on Sunday and Monday there, with potentially 110, maybe even 115 degree heat indexes in some spots. And then insane heat pushing all the way up to Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, so many areas. Anywhere that is in that kind of grayish, reddish, pinkish regions show 100-degree heat indexes there. And if you just look in these areas, we're going to be seeing extreme heat today, and it's going to push even further north tomorrow on Sunday, with extreme heat getting all the way through Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, maybe even up to South Dakota regions. It's going to continue through Monday and Tuesday with extreme heat, especially more forward into Mississippi, Tennessee, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Mississippi areas on Monday and Tuesday, with some really extreme heat there. And then continuing even to Wednesday, then it's finally going to cool down by the time it gets to Thursday. There will still be extreme heat in portions of the deep south, but most of the heat up here will be gone, as it's going to be pushing further and further south, as some cool air is going to move in from Canadian areas, and it's really bring down that heat around the Thursday to Friday time frame. So at least we'll be happy that there's going to be some relief, but we're not done yet. We still got 4 to 5 more days, so just really be prepared, guys. Make sure if you have any kids or dogs in your car, do not leave them in a car, as that's really dangerous. There, make sure to drink fluids, plenty of fluids, and do not be outdoors for too long, and do not do much strenuous activity at all, because the heat is pretty bad. I deal with it after 15 minutes of being outside. It's not fun at all across those areas. But I wanted to show you guys something that would maybe make you guys a little bit happier about this. heat. And that is because a lot of the models are showing signs of a big time cooldown. You can see this extreme heat across portions of the central US. And look, by the time we get to Thursday and Friday, a big area of below average temperatures starts to move through the central, eastern, and even the western US, which is going to really bring that heat wave down. And we could be seeing a lot of relief here, low 80s, maybe even 70s in some spots here. So a huge cool down of relief that maybe is going to continue for an entire week straight into the start of August. So that's just something I wanted to show you guys because that's a good sign in those areas. Alright, hope you guys did enjoy today's video. We are going to be seeing multiple days of severe weather, nothing too significant, most prominent day being today, especially across North Dakota, South Dakota, and a little bit of that in portions of the Mid-Atlantic and Central and Midwestern US, with some flash flooding possible, especially in the Midwest regions and portions of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Today, with that monstrous heat wave that is just never ending across portions of the Southeast, Central, and Midwestern US there. Luckily, there's some signs of relief upcoming once we get into the start of August with that heat. But over the next few days or so, this is going to be still some extreme heat across those areas. Hope you guys liked today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. You're prepared when the next weather strikes.